Have you noticed that we're living in a very strange era? An era where distractions no longer come from the outside, but from inside our own minds. You pick up your phone just for a second, and somehow an entire hour disappears without a trace. You sit down to study or work, and your mind immediately drifts in 100 different directions, to a comment someone left online, to an old conversation, to thoughts that have absolutely nothing to do with the present moment. Some people walk into the grocery store and forget what they went there to buy. Some watch a movie but still check their phones every few minutes. Some talk to their loved ones while their eyes remain glued to a glowing screen. We're alive, yet so many of the moments in our lives no longer belong to us. The scariest part, most people think this is normal. They believe they're not focused enough, not disciplined enough, not good at managing time. But the truth is completely different. There is nothing wrong with them. There is nothing wrong with you. The human brain was never designed to handle thousands of simultaneous stimuli, notifications, messages, ads, music, news, pressure, deadlines, a relentless stream of noise that never stops. Each wave hits the mind before the previous one has settled, and slowly, without realizing it, the mind forgets how to stay still. That's why so many people fall into a strange state of existence. Always busy, always rushed, always running, yet never feeling whole. Working while thinking about something else. Eating without tasting the food. Talking without truly listening. Going to bed feeling exhausted but mentally restless. Waking up feeling dissatisfied without knowing exactly why. None of this is your fault. These are simply signs that the mind has been fragmented for far too long. But here's the good news. There is a way back. A way to reclaim control. A way to bring the scattered pieces of your attention home again. It comes from Japanese Zen tradition, a method practiced for centuries, used not only to calm the mind but to sharpen it, a discipline of one action, one focus, one moment, one presence. No splitting, no scattering, no fighting yourself. When you do something with your entire attention, the outside world fades away. Noise becomes silence. Comparison stops. Worry dissolves. What remains is a rare kind of peace. The kind many people in the modern world lost long ago. The Japanese call this total presence, one mindfulness. Zen calls it samadhi. Modern psychology calls it the flow state. Different names. Same truth. When you learn to focus on one thing at a time, you don't just improve your productivity, you transform your entire life. And today's video is the journey of someone who discovered that transformation. A person who went from constant failure and distraction to becoming someone who could direct their attention like a finely honed blade. That their story will show you that anyone, no matter how scattered or overwhelmed, can retrain the mind, rebuild focus, and liberate themselves from the invisible prison of distraction. But before we begin, ask yourself one honest question. What steals your attention the most right now? Your phone, social media, procrastination, or your own restless mind? Write it down. When you can clearly name the problem, you're already halfway to the solution. If you're seeking clarity, focus, and a calmer direction for your life, consider subscribing to the channel Life Philosophy and turning on notifications. Every video here is a small step toward understanding yourself, growing a little each day, and slowing down just enough to truly feel the present moment again. And share with us in the comments. The thing that distracts me the most is your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Part 1. The character's story. Asterisk, some turning points in life don't come with loud applause. There's no spotlight, no dramatic music. They arrive quietly in the most ordinary moments. Like a late afternoon, sunlight slipping through an empty classroom, where a 17-year-old Japanese student named Ren Nakamura sat staring at the test paper in front of him. Ren wasn't a bad student. Far from it. He understood lessons quickly, remembered concepts well, and had a sharp, logical mind. Teachers often said he had incredible potential if only he could stay focused. But that was exactly his biggest weakness. Ren couldn't focus, not even for 10 minutes at a time. Every time he opened a textbook, his mind drifted away after a few pages. Every time he sat down to study, he somehow ended up scrolling through his phone. Even during class, even when the lesson was important, his thoughts wandered into vague fantasies about the future. Ren dreamed of becoming a software engineer. He imagined himself working at a major tech company, writing lines of code that could change the world. But the reality: math, below average; physics, inconsistent; programming, good, but not deep enough. He had the ability, but not the focus to turn ability into mastery. His classmates often teased him. Ren, you, a tech major? Keep dreaming. 5 minutes into studying and you're already on TikTok. How are you going to survive college? Ren would laugh it off, but inside, every comment stung. His parents didn't scold him, but the sighs after every parent-teacher meeting. He heard them. He felt them. And they weighed on him more than any punishment. Ren wasn't lazy. He was losing a battle against his own mind. He tried everything. Turning off the Wi-Fi, locking his phone in a drawer, making strict study plans, promising himself he'd start fresh tomorrow. But every time tomorrow arrived, everything fell apart again. The harder he forced himself to focus, the more chaotic his mind became. He felt like someone trying to collect water with a cracked bucket. He always started well, but never reached the finish line. And then came that day, one quiet afternoon. After receiving the lowest math score of his life, Ren stayed behind in the classroom. His classmates left. Footsteps faded. Silence wrapped around him. Only sunlight remained, falling gently on the paper full of red marks. Ren placed his hands on the desk, lowered his head. And for the first time, he didn't run away from the truth. He didn't blame social media. He didn't blame pressure. He didn't blame life. Instead, he asked himself, why can't I control my own mind? Why won't my brain stay still, even for a moment? Why do I start everything well, but never finish? It wasn't despair. It was awakening. Ren stood up, took a deep breath, grabbed his test paper, and for the first time in months, he didn't hide from reality. He made a simple but powerful decision. He asked for help, not from classmates, not from a motivational video. Ren went to see someone he deeply respected, Mr. Hayato Mori. His mathematics teacher, Mr. Mori, was a quiet man in his early 50s, with a calm presence and eyes as still as a lake in early autumn. He never yelled at students, never showed anger. One gentle glance was enough for the entire class to fall silent, not out of fear, but out of respect for the peaceful energy he carried. Ren walked to the teacher's office, heart pounding. He knocked softly. Mr. Mori, may I talk to you for a moment? The teacher looked up from his documents and smiled gently. Come in, Ren. Ren sat down, hands trembling. He didn't know how to begin, but eventually everything poured out. Sir, I want to improve. I want to study computer science. But I can't focus. Every time I open a book, my mind goes everywhere. I'm scared. Scared that I'll miss my future because I can't control my own mind. Mr. Mori didn't interrupt. He listened fully attentively, as if every word mattered. When Ren finished, the teacher asked calmly, "Ren, when you study, do you leave multiple tabs open on your computer?" "Yes." "And your phone needs it next to you?" "Yes." "And while studying, does your mind drift to other thoughts?" "Yes, exactly." Mr. Mori smiled, not a mocking smile, but the warm smile of someone who understands. "I know that feeling well," he said. "Because when I was your age, I was exactly like you." Ren's eyes widened. "You were like me." "Yes, and my life only changed when my grandfather taught me one thing." The teacher pulled out a blank sheet of paper, wrote a few words on it, and handed it to Ren. On the paper were 3 simple, powerful words: Ichigyo-Zammai, one task, one mind, and from that moment on, Ren's journey truly began. Part 2. The meeting with the mentor and the first lesson. Ren Nakamura held the small sheet of paper that Mr. Mori had handed him. 3 handwritten words, Zisame soft strokes, yet firm enough to feel meaningful. He read them again and again, whispering the syllables carefully as if speaking too loudly might break. The calmness in the room, Mr. Mori leaned back in his chair, watching Ren with the serene, grounded gaze that always made his students feel seen, never judged. Ren looked up. "Sensei, does it mean just focusing on one thing?" The teacher smiled. "Not just focusing. It goes much deeper than that." His voice wasn't loud, but every word landed clearly, like a drop of water falling onto a quiet lake. Ren straightened his posture without thinking. "When you study math," Mr. Mori continued, "you think you're studying math? But what you're really doing is studying while thinking about other subjects, while checking your phone, while worrying about exams, while imagining the future. You split your mind into 10 pieces, and with a divided mind, no matter how intelligent you are, your results will always be shallow." It felt as if someone had read Ren's inner world like an open book. Mr. Mori pointed at the paper in Ren's hand. Ichigyo-Zammai means one action, one mind. Whether you're studying, sweeping the floor, washing dishes, or walking, you pour your entire being into that one task. When you study math, you are math. When you write, you are the words. Ren blinked, confused. "B. Math." Mr. Mori chuckled softly, not mocking, but amused by the innocence of a 17-year-old, trying to grasp a 1,000-year-old principle. "Let me put it differently. Have you ever played a video game and completely lost track of time?" Ren nodded immediately. "Many times. In those moments," Mr. Mori explained, "you don't think about your exams, your messages, or tomorrow's plans. You merge with the game. That is the flow state neuroscientists talk about. Ichigyo-Zammai is the art of intentionally entering that state, not just during games, but in any important task." A shiver ran down Ren's spine. For the first time, someone had named something he had always felt but never understood. "So, how do I practice it?" Ren asked. Mr. Mori stood up and walked toward a bookshelf. He pulled out a small wooden box, placed it on the table, and opened it. Inside was a simple hourglass, nothing fancy, just enough sand for roughly 20 minutes. He set it in front of Ren. "This is where you begin." Ren looked surprised. "This is my homework." The teacher nodded. "Before you study, do the following." He raised his fingers, counting slowly. "Put your phone in another room. Turn off all notifications. Close every browser tab except one. Sit up straight. Take 3 deep breaths. Then flip the hourglass and do only one thing until the sand runs out." Ren swallowed. "Just one thing." "Only one," Mr. Mori said firmly. "If your mind wanders, and it will, you simply notice it." "Ah." "My mind wandered," and gently guide it back. No blaming yourself. No forcing. No frustration. Just return. Those words touched something deep inside Ren. It might have been the first time someone taught him to treat his own mind with kindness, not pressure, but, "What if I fail?" Ren asked softly. "You will fail," Mr. Mori replied without hesitation. Ren's eyes widened. "But failure is part of training the mind. You return, and return, and return again. Every return is like lifting a weight. You're building the muscle of attention. And attention, Ren, is the strongest muscle a human can develop." Ren sat in silence. In that quiet moment, he realized something. For years, he wasn't weak. He just never learned how to use his mind properly. Mr. Mori ended their conversation with a gentle but unforgettable line. "If you can learn to return to the present moment, Ren, then nothing in this world can break your focus." Ren bowed deeply. For the first time, he felt like he had been given a key, not to success, but to himself. That day, Ren walked out of the room holding a small hourglass and a paper with 3 simple words, Ichigyo-Zammai, and inside him, something quietly began to shift. Part 3 ***, the first time practicing Ichigyo-Zammai that evening. Ren Nakamura returned home with the hourglass tucked in his backpack and the 3 words, Ichigyo-Zammai, echoing in his mind like a slow, steady drumbeat. Night had fallen, the streetlights were glowing, and a cool breeze moved through the trees. But inside Ren, something entirely different was stirring, as if he was about to begin a ritual he didn't fully understand yet. He stepped into his room, closed the door, and placed the hourglass on his desk. He rarely paid attention to this desk. For months, it had been buried under a mountain of books, notebooks, sticky notes, pencils, wrappers, and random clutter. It was a mirror of his scattered mind. This time, Ren pulled out his chair and stood still for a moment. Then he began to clean. Not the usual half-hearted cleaning. He placed every book back on the shelf, threw away old papers, organized his pens, until only 3 things remained on the desk: his notebook, his pen, and the hourglass. A quiet thought crossed his mind. Preparing the environment is preparing the mind. When the desk was finally clear, he grabbed his phone, hesitated for a few seconds, and then placed it in a drawer outside his room. Not on silent, not face down on the table, completely out of reach. He knew that if it stayed anywhere within the room, even a slight vibration could ruin everything. Ren returned to his desk, sat down, laid his hand on the hourglass, and took 3 deep, deliberate breaths, just as Mr. Mori had taught him. Then he flipped the hourglass. The first grains of sand dropped. The first day of Ichigyo-Zammai began. The first 5 minutes were torture. Ren opened his math book and stared at the chapter on derivatives. Within 30 seconds, his mind started its rebellion. Did anyone text me? I wonder if there's a new video. What about tomorrow's physics score? His mind jumped like a restless monkey. Ren didn't fight it. He remembered the teacher's words, when the mind wanders, just notice and return. He closed his eyes for a brief moment and whispered inside. My mind drifted away. Then he gently guided it back to the equation in front of him. But within a minute, it drifted again. And again. And again, 10 times in just a few minutes. But Ren stayed patient. Every time he caught his attention slipping, he pulled it back softly, without judgment. He didn't know he was training something extremely important, the practice of returning. What neuroscientists call the golden repetition of neuroplasticity. By the 10th minute, something unexpected happened. The noise in his head softened just a bit. Not gone, but quieter. He found himself able to focus for 30 to 40 seconds before drifting again. For Ren, that was real progress. Not from willpower, but from gentleness. By the 20th minute, his mind began to follow his lead, instead of tugging him around. His breathing slowed, the lines of text sharpened, and every return felt like placing a small brick in the reconstruction of his own brain. Then something happened around minute 20-3. Ren stopped hearing the traffic outside, stopped noticing the light leaking in from the hallway, stopped feeling the chair, the walls, or even the passing of time. He sank into the math problem before him, as if everything else dissolved, leaving only him and the numbers. The dx, the steps of the proof. Ren didn't have a word for it, but anyone watching would call it flow state. Not forced concentration, but natural concentration, the kind that feels like water flowing along its path. Time vanished. When the sands reached the bottom with a soft click, Ren snapped back. He checked the hourglass. 20-5 minutes. Gone. He leaned back and realized he had accomplished more in those 25 minutes than he usually did in an entire week. Not because he worked faster, but because, for the first time in his life, he was truly present. Ren placed a hand on his chest. His heart was racing not from anxiety, but from excitement. He had never felt this sharp, this clear, this in control. So this is what it feels like to direct my mind. That night, for the first time in months, Ren went to bed without his phone. He fell asleep easily, with a quiet mind that felt freshly cleaned. And before drifting off, he glanced at the hourglass on his desk and made a simple but powerful promise to himself. Tomorrow, I'll do it again. And better. Ren had no idea that this promise would mark the beginning of the transformation of his entire life. Part 4. The transformation begins. Ren changes from within. In the days that followed, Ren Nakamura's life began to shift quietly but powerfully. There was no magical moment, no sudden revelation, no dramatic soundtrack like in a movie. Only small changes, so small that an ordinary person might assume nothing was happening at all. But those small changes were the true signs of a transformation. The next afternoon, as he had promised himself, Ren returned to his desk, placed the hourglass down, and flipped it. His mind still had old habits, jumping from thought to thought, but he noticed something different. He came back faster than yesterday. Every time he drifted, Ren didn't scold himself. He didn't sigh or whisper, "Why am I like this?" He simply noticed and returned. Slowly, Ren realized something profound. Before, he thought he failed because he lacked willpower, but the truth was, he had simply never been taught how to manage his attention. No one at school ever told him that. Focus wasn't something you magically had, was a skill. And skills must be trained. A week passed, and Ren began noticing changes in his everyday life. On his way to school, he used to walk with his eyes glued to his phone, never noticing the trees, the sunlight reflecting off the leaves, or the small birds perched on the rooftops. It felt like he lived inside an invisible box, one made of notifications, expectations, and things he couldn't control. But now, Ren walked slower. He listened to the sound of his footsteps, felt the breeze on his face, watched the colors of the morning. Not because he was trying to meditate or be mindful, but because his mind wasn't drifting the way it used to. When you train your attention in one area, awareness spreads into others. In the classroom, Ren no longer battled constant daydreams. Whenever a difficult concept came up, his mind used to escape instantly to video games, weekend plans, or random imaginary scenarios. Now, he practiced Ichigyo-Zammai even while learning. When the teacher spoke, he listened. When he took notes, he only took notes. When he solved a problem, he only solved that problem. No more checking his phone under the desk. No more scrolling during breaks. No more drifting off. His friends noticed the difference. Dude, Ren is so weird lately. Why so serious? Hey, not playing FIFA today. Why so quiet, man? Studying for some secret exam? Ren just smiled. He didn't know how to explain it. How do you tell someone that what changed you wasn't motivation, wasn't ambition, but presence? That weekend, Ren decided to take things even further. He created a simple pre-study ritual. Clean the desk for 1 minute. Place the hourglass. Take 3 deep breaths. Choose exactly one task for the next 25 minutes. That was it. Small, simple, but incredibly powerful. And then something remarkable happened. During that session, Ren entered such deep concentration that when his mother opened the door to call him for dinner, Ren didn't hear her. It was the first time in his life that had ever happened. When he finally looked up, his eyes were glowing with focus, as if he had returned from another world. His mother stared at him in surprise. Ren, how on earth did you not hear me calling you 3 times? He smiled softly. I was concentrating, Mum. She paused, then smiled back. She didn't say anything more, but Ren knew she was proud. By the middle of the second week, Ren experienced an even deeper change. He no longer felt like he was being pulled by life. Before, everything moved too fast. Too many notifications. Too many messages. Too much pressure from school. But Zen teaches, when you give your full mind to one thing, you free your mind from everything else. And Ren felt this truth becoming real. When he studied, he only studied. When he ate, he only ate. When he slept, he only slept. When he rested, he truly rested. No more thinking about one thing while doing another. No more being torn in 5 directions at once. No more multitasking chaos. Ren felt as if his entire body finally synced with his own life. No double monitor brain. No multi-tab thinking. No scattered compass. For the first time in years, Ren realized he could change. Not through luck. Not through talent. But through small moments of focus repeated over and over, like drops of water carving stone. And then one afternoon, Ren opened his math book and felt something that stopped him. For a second, he wasn't afraid of it anymore. The subject that had once terrified him, the one that made him want to quit, was now just numbers, symbols, and solvable challenges. Ren exhaled slowly. A small smile formed on his lips. Gentle, hopeful. He was no longer the Ren from 2 weeks ago. He was becoming someone new, moment by moment, guided by 3 quiet, powerful words. Ichigyo. Part 5. The long road, the following months, became the most challenging phase for Ren. There were no more sudden bursts of motivation, no more excitement of trying something new. Each day looked plain and repetitive, like blank pages in a notebook. But those pages were exactly where a new version of Ren was quietly being built. At first, Ren still had to remind himself constantly. Put the phone away. Breathe before studying. Open only one window. Do just one task. But over time, these weren't rules anymore. They slowly became his nature. Ren began to notice a very clear shift. When he ate, he only ate. No videos, no messages, no scrolling. He tasted his food more fully, ate slower, and felt lighter inside. When he studied, he only studied. No background music, no multitasking, no chasing perfection. Just the lesson in front of him and the rhythm of his breath. When he talked to someone, he was fully present. No glancing at his phone. No thinking about what he needed to do next. He learned to truly listen deeply, calmly, respectfully. And then Ren realized something important. Ichigyo-Zammai was no longer a technique. It had become his way of living. That change eventually led to his first real breakthrough. During the final exam of the semester, Ren walked into the room with an unusual calmness. There was no fear, no panic, no flashbacks of past failures. Just question after question appearing before him, and he worked through them as if walking a familiar path. When the results were posted, Ren froze for a moment. He had achieved his first major goal. He passed the entrance exam for a university he once thought was far beyond his reach, and the emotions rose exactly in the order he had lived them. From repeated failure that nearly broke him, to doubting whether he was good enough, to the moment he finally understood that talent wasn't the issue, attention was, to the weeks of disciplined focus where he rebuilt himself, to the day he finally broke through. Ren didn't shout, didn't brag, didn't post anything online. He simply stood there with a quiet smile, the smile of someone who knew he was finally walking in the right direction. This wasn't a victory about grades. It was a victory of presence, of focus, of a mind that no longer ran wild. Ren understood that this was only the beginning. But that beginning proved one truth. When a person learns to give their full attention to a single task, nothing is truly out of reach. Part 6. The scientific explanation. You might be wondering, Ichigyo-Zammai sounds great, but is it really backed by science? And the answer is yes, absolutely. In fact, what Japanese Zen practitioners have done for centuries, focusing on one single action, aligns perfectly with some of the biggest discoveries in modern neuroscience. 1. Harvard research. Increased gray matter in the attention center. A well-known study from Harvard University, led by neuroscientist Sarah Lazar, revealed something remarkable. People who practice mindfulness, intentional, present moment focus, develop increased gray matter density in the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for attention control, decision-making, emotional regulation, sustained awareness. In other words, deep, intentional focus makes your brain physically stronger the more consistently someone practices Ichigyo. the more the areas responsible for focus literally expand. And the most shocking part, these measurable changes appear after just 8 weeks of practice. Ren's transformation, or anyone's transformation, isn't motivational magic. It's the tangible result of the brain's ability to rewire itself based on repeated mental patterns. Every time you bring your attention back to the task, you're strengthening neural pathways, building new information highways, improving cognitive control, reducing susceptibility to distraction. All of this happens quietly inside your brain, day by day. 2. Stanford research. 40% reduction in the default mode network, the distraction network. Another major study from Stanford University adds to this picture. Researchers observed the brains of people who practiced focused attention techniques and discovered their default mode network DMN activity dropped by up to 40%. What is It's the brain network that becomes active when you're daydreaming, thinking about the past, worrying about the future, replaying negative thoughts, drifting without intention. In short, DMN is the distraction center of your brain. When DMN overactivates, you experience difficulty concentrating, mental fog, anxiety, scattered thinking. So when Ichigyo-Zammai reduces DMN activity by 40%, it is effectively shutting down mental noise, quieting unnecessary thoughts, sharpening your cognitive clarity, allowing your brain to stay anchored in the present. You don't focus better because you try harder. You focus better because your brain stops pulling you away. 3. The attention switching cost. The hidden price of multitasking. The original video mentions a statistic from the University of California. Every time you're interrupted, it takes roughly 23 minutes to regain full focus. This is due to something called the attention switching cost. Every time you check your phone, switch tasks, open a new tab, jump from studying to scrolling, your brain has to reset its cognitive state. It's like forcing a computer to open and close programs. Every few minutes, scientific findings show task switching spikes cortisol, triggers unnecessary adrenaline, reduces working memory efficiency, lowers overall productivity by up to 40%. You don't lose focus because you're weak. You lose focus because your environment forces your brain into constant switching. Ichigyo-Zammai removes that burden point for the flow state, when the world disappears, when Ren studied so deeply that time seemed to vanish. He entered what neuroscientists call the flow state. Flow is defined by time distortion, reduced effort, enhanced performance. In this state, the brain decreases activity in areas tied to self-doubt and increases activation in task-specific circuits. This results in 2 to 5 higher productivity, maximum working memory capacity, far fewer mistakes, greater creativity, what Zen monks have practiced for centuries. Western science is only now confirming. Total immersion in one action unlocks the highest version of human performance. 5. Neuroplasticity. Your brain changes every time you return to the task. Here's the most important insight. Every time your mind wanders and you bring it back, you're training your brain. You don't need perfection. You don't need to never get distracted. You just need wonder gives return. Wonder gives return. Every return strengthens neural connections, attention control circuits, inhibitory networks that suppress distraction. Your ability to enter deep focus faster next time. This is why, after months of practice, Ren felt as if his mind had been rewired, because scientifically speaking, it had 6. The final truth. Focus is not talent. It is a biological skill. Harvard shows the brain can increase gray matter. Stanford shows DMN activity can decrease. Neuroplasticity shows attention improves through repetition. Flow science shows performance can multiply. All of this leads to one conclusion. Focus is not a gift. It is a trainable biological ability, and Ichigyo-Zammai is one of the most effective ways to train it. Part 7. Psychological, philosophical, and Japanese wisdom lessons. After understanding the scientific foundation behind each, we naturally move toward a deeper layer, the layer of psychology, philosophy, and Japanese wisdom. In Japan, focus isn't just a skill for studying or working. It is considered a path of inner cultivation, a way of living that helps you return to yourself, live more truthfully, and experience life more deeply. There is a famous Zen saying, when you do something with your full presence, everything becomes clearer. It sounds simple, but it transforms the way we live, especially in a world that pushes us to rush, multitask, and scatter our attention into tiny fragments. 1. When you are fully present, life becomes deeper. Ichigyo-Zammai isn't only about efficiency. It is about bringing your mind home. Modern life makes people rush through everything, eating quickly, sleeping shallowly, working mechanically, learning in survival mode, living on autopilot. Your body may be here, but your mind is almost always somewhere else. In Japanese culture, there is the concept of ima, meaning here and now. The belief behind it is simple but profound. A single moment lived fully is worth more than 1,000 moments lived unconsciously. When you eat and only eat, you taste life more clearly. When you talk and only talk, you connect more deeply. When you study and only study, you unlock your mind's sharpest state. Presence makes life deep, not busy. Depth nourishes. Busyness drains. The meaning of living slowly, living truthfully, living with presence. Another well-known Japanese philosophy is Shin, Zen by Shin. Truth, Zen, goodness. By subtle beauty to the Japanese, true beauty is found not in intensity, but in quietness and simplicity. Living slowly doesn't mean doing less. It means not letting your mind run faster than your life. Living truthfully doesn't mean expressing every emotion. It means having the courage to face yourself. Living with presence doesn't require hours of meditation. It simply means pausing long enough to notice what is happening right now. Your breath, the wind, the eyes of the person in front of you, the thought passing through your mind, the emotion forming in your chest. Only when you are present are you truly alive. If the mind is stuck in the past or lost in the future, you are merely existing. 3. Why modern people lose their ability to focus. Science gives many explanations, but psychologically and philosophically, the biggest reason is simple.